There was a time when Henry thought his life was over. Not in a dramatic movie-like way, but in the quiet, haunting silence of a man who had simply stopped hoping. He was 58, recently retired from a job he had grown to hate, divorced, estranged from his only son, and now, living alone in a small, dusty apartment in Ohio. Each morning followed the same pattern. He'd wake up, make a bitter cup of black coffee, sit by the window and stare into the nothingness. And every day he'd ask himself, is this really all that's left? One rainy afternoon, as he was cleaning out an old box buried in the closet, he found something unexpected, a yellowed envelope addressed to himself. It was a letter, written by Henry at age 17, back in 1983. Inside it read, "By 2020, I want to teach, inspire, and build something that lasts." Henry let out a bitter laugh. That dream he thought was long dead, a relic of youthful optimism. But that night, something stirred. He couldn't sleep. The letter kept whispering in his mind, not with guilt, but with something softer, something quieter. "It's not too late," it said. The next morning, Henry did something he hadn't done in years. He stepped outside, walked into the local community center, and asked if they needed any volunteers. That's how he met Michael, a 16-year-old boy who hated math and hated life even more. Henry started tutoring him every Wednesday afternoon. At first, the boy barely spoke, but week by week, the silence melted, and the walls between them slowly came down. Michael reminded Henry of his own son, that same quiet stubbornness, that same look of sadness buried beneath the surface. And somehow, in helping Michael, something in Henry's heart broke open and began to heal. One day, just before leaving, Michael looked up and said, "You make me feel like I matter." Henry didn't respond. He just nodded and blinked back tears. That night, Henry picked up the phone, and for the first time in 9 years, he called his son. It wasn't a perfect call. There were long silences, awkward pauses, unspoken pain, but also, for the first time in a long, long while, there was hope. Years passed, and one sunny June afternoon, Henry stood at Michael's high school graduation. The boy he once tutored was now headed to college, and beside him stood his son. They weren't best friends. They hadn't erased the past, but they were there, together, moving forward. You see, sometimes life gives us a second chance, but more often than not, it's not life that hands it to us. It's us, choosing to try, choosing to believe again, choosing to take just one more step, because no matter what your past looks like, there's still something ahead worth reaching for. And if you're listening to this, maybe your second chance is waiting for you too.